So hello and welcome to this workshop on letting go of the past so that you can live your dream life. My name is Katrina Horn and I'm a life coach. And if I wanted to talk to you today about letting go of the past, it's because that is really what gets in the way of us living our most delicious, our most dreamt of life. So I hope that this workshop will have you perhaps realize if there's something that you could let go of that you no longer need. And again, as we're looking at this from a self-development point of view, it's not to condemn and it's not to judge. It's not to blame or to shame. It's really just to create the awareness, because once we've got the awareness, well, then we can do something about it. As long as we don't know exactly what it is, then we're just sort of floating around in a, I don't know. And once we put our finger on it, then we can say, well, I do know. Maybe I don't know what to do about it, but I do know. And my point of today is that maybe in psychotherapy, often we ask the question, well, why? Why? Where's that coming from and why? But what I hope to show you today is that even if you don't know exactly why, if you're not sure of the why, you can actually let go, because just the knowledge of what it is that you want to let go of is enough to start letting go. So I call this my 8-step process, but there is so much in it. And I would love for you to just pick what it is that speaks to you. So we're going to go through all the 8 steps today, but maybe you won't need to do all of them. Maybe you won't want to do all of them. So they're just here really for you to use as you see fit. And of course, if you're here live, that is gorgeous. Thank you for being here. You can, of course, comment in the chat. And you can ask questions, and sometimes I'll ask you questions, and maybe you can help with a few examples. We'll see that as we go along. But if you're okay with all of that and you have got no questions, then we'll just go ahead and start. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll just move straight into the workshop. So I've got a little bit of, I've been ill this week. I've had an ear infection, an eye infection, a throat infection. I've had a cold, so I'm just recovering from that. So I might be coughing a little bit, and I might be taking a few drops of something or a little pill, so just to calm my throat down. But yesterday I did an in-person workshop for 6 hours, and it went perfectly smoothly. So maybe this will be really smooth and easy too. So if you are getting stuck with the baggage you're bringing with you into your life right now, that belongs in the past, you could be feeling stuck now, wondering why nothing seems to be working. You could be repeating those same patterns from the past that you did in the past, but that you really no longer need to repeat once you can pinpoint them, because they no longer serve you. And I'm sure you know that something else is possible than what you're living right now, but you find it a little bit of a struggle to make it happen. So that is all so usual. We all have it to various degrees, right? And coaching is really the tool that can help you create the awareness and then change what you want to change so that you can move on. And I hope to give you those tools today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ego. And when I say ego, it's really just that part of you that is not your best self. So we as humans, we've got the ability to look at our own behavior. And as I say, I love animals, but I don't think dogs and cats can really look at their own behavior and then change or choose to change it. And I think we can do that because we are not really everything that we have got awareness of, meaning that there's this ego part, which is really just this frightened, this doubting, this unsure and insecure part of us that is not our best self. And that is what I mean when I say ego. Feel free to argue with that, and feel free to call that anything else, really, your critical voice, your lower self, or your subconscious, whatever it is, right? It's that part of you that doesn't have you show up at your best. So your ego is afraid to let go because it finds safety, it finds comfort in what is habitual. So everything you've been doing in your life up to now, it feels so good to it. And I'll tell you why. It has identified with your past persona. So the person you have been being all your life, the parts of it that it has really helped construct, and it has been sometimes left to run the show, if I can call it like that, in the absence of your higher self, in the absence of your best self. And the ego feels so good about itself because it has kept you alive, right? If you're here today, it's that you're alive, and you've been doing a pretty amazing job, because being alive is really what it used to be all about. Only you're no longer satisfied with being simply alive. You want more out of life, and you're right too. Right? We don't just want to survive. If you're here, it's because you want to thrive. And thriving is about the more, right? It's about no longer being in that survival state that sometimes animals are in. It's about hooking into and linking up with what else is possible and what would make your life so much better. And I think I spoke about that last month in our workshop, how the more can have us feel guilty, can have us feel ungrateful. But that's not today's subject. You can go back and have a look at that one if you want to. So let us move on. Your ego is the 4-year-old version of you. It's the version of you that took on a lot of opinions, a lot of impressions without questioning them. Because when you were little, you didn't have any critical brain. You just downloaded information from your environment, from your family, from everything that surrounded you, and you didn't question it. So it was just like a direct download. And that is what's sometimes tripping us up, because that 4-year-old is scared and it doesn't trust you to run the show, because you, your higher self, your best self, you want more out of life. And that can be a little bit scary, because if we're not used to it as the ego version of ourselves, it feels threatening, right? Because what if you just went off and you started thriving, so much so that you just go on to create everything you wanted in your life? Now that would be majorly scary, right? And it sees monsters where there are none. So really think of that little child who's afraid of the monster under the bed. You're the adult in the room. You can help it, right? That little 4-year-old doubts. It's in need of nurture. It needs the adult that you can be for it. So you need to talk back to it, but perhaps not to scold it. And the image I've got is of, I don't know whether that was your case, but when I was little, sometimes I'd be afraid that there would be a monster under the bed. And I think that's really, really common for children. They get these ideas. There's a monster under my bed. And if you're a parent, maybe you know that too. And if you think of it, being the adult, looking after the child, whether you're the parent or just the minder, how would you feel about that child being really afraid and it calling for you, and you opening the door and saying, there is no monster, be quiet, and then just slamming the door, right? That is perhaps not the most useful thing to do. But that is what we sometimes do with these monsters that come back to haunt us from the past. We want to shut them out. So we scream at our little 4-year-old inside of us, to that inner child, telling it There are no monsters. You're wrong. Just get rid of that idea and get on with it. And that can seem very uncaring. And all it does really is to nurture the worry, is to nurture the monster. Much better to go into the room and be with the child, talk to the child, show that you care, show it that it's normal to be afraid of things in life, but that together you can look under the bed to see if there is a monster, right? So you can talk to it in a caring way, and you can make it see sense, because you know as the adult that there is no monster, right? Are you with me on that? So that is what we'll be doing today. We'll be talking to that subconscious ego, little child part of you who's afraid and who's bringing all this stuff from the past, because that is just what it's used to. So what we'll be doing is we'll be letting go of the mistakes we've made in the past. These mistakes are upsetting us today. We feel we can't let go of them. They keep coming up and we keep blaming ourselves. We keep shaming ourselves. We keep telling ourselves off for having made them. We're going to make peace with them. So they could include money mistakes. I feel that they are really frequent. And I used to have so much guilt about what I called my money mistakes. But upon investigation, well, okay, some of them were mistakes, but some of them were not. So that's what happens when we shine a light on it. It could be relationship mistakes, people you got involved with that you think, maybe I shouldn't have, or the opposite. Maybe I should have been more involved with that person. Diet mistakes. You find yourself perhaps overweight today for having made some mistakes with your diet, and now you feel so bad about it. I say that because I used to be there. I used to be very overweight, and I really used to hate myself for it. So diet mistakes, education mistakes, right? This is what I went along with. Believing what other people said of you was true, which is a big mistake. And that is so easy for us to believe when we are young, isn't it? Our parents tell us things, our siblings, our so-called friends at school, our teachers. They tell us so many things, but what they tell us is just what they believe. It might not be the truth. So we'll be letting go of all these things that we think are mistakes, but also really that will demand of you to let go of your former self-concept, the part of you that has identified with the mistakes and have sometimes become labels that then define us, right? We've taken on these labels. One of mine used to be, I am lazy. I'm lazy. And of course, that is not true. And that's a label that I have let go of. And once I let go of that, well, then I can stop proving how it is that I'm not lazy. And I can just get on with the enjoyment of it. So if you're okay with that, we're going to dive into the workbook. And if you haven't got the workbook, don't worry, because I'll be sharing my screen. Also, you won't have time to do all the work that is suggested in the workbook in this workshop, but there will be a replay and the workbook will be there, and you'll be free to go back and dive into it. So welcome to everybody who's just joined. We'll be diving into the workbook now. And of course, in the email that goes out with the replay, there is a link to where you can download it. So let me just swap over to the workbook. And again, I like making things look pretty. So I try to make this look really pretty. I hope that you would agree. And looking pretty is just to motivate myself to take it out and to get to work on it. So I mentioned the 8 steps. Our first step is to get clear on our dream, because if we want to let go of things from the past, it is so that we can live our present and future without that luggage from the past. So I'd love for you to identify something you really want. And I call that a dream of yours. It could be anything from starting your own business, buying your first house, having a baby, losing 20 pounds, meeting the love of your life, anything, any dream. It can be really big, but it also works with really small things. It could be this month's income goal. It could be making a meal plan for next week and sticking to it. So if you've just joined, you're wondering why I'm sounding a little bit strange. It's because I've had so many infections and I'm just getting over them. So bear with me. So identify something that you really want and write it down here. So now you can say, I can't lose 20 pounds. I can't start my own business. I can't learn Italian. I can't, whatever it is that you want to do, you can't, right? So just put it down on paper. It doesn't make it true, but it does allow us to identify it. What is it we feel we can't do? So let's have a look at why that is true. So we're not arguing it, right? We are going along with this idea that we can't something just to shine a light on it. So I can't meet the love of my life because, and that because is the reason you can't. Why is it that you can't move to a different country? Why can't you move to Spain, for instance? So the sentence could go, I can't move to Spain because, so that could be because I wouldn't be able to find work there, because I don't speak Spanish, because I don't know anybody there, any reason. I can't start my own business because I don't have the skills. You know, whatever's true for you. Go ahead and define that. I can't something because. And then with that, we're going to identify what the possible label is or the mistake. So what could be one of the labels? Take all the reasons you've listed, and there could be many. There could be one major and 3 minor, or there could be 7 huge ones. Like I can't lose 20 pounds because my metabolism is slow. I can't exercise because everybody in my family is overweight, because I've had 7 children, because, and you just go on and list all the reasons. These reasons could have something to do with a mistake you made. So with weight loss, it could be, I let myself get fat, or my genes make me fat. Something like that. If you feel that you can't find love in life because you're unlovable, or you can't start your own business because you're no good at accounting, or whatever it is for you, the idea is that you take it and you stick it on a label. And you just write whatever it is that comes up for you on one or more of these labels. I really suggest that you don't have more than 6 reasons, 6 labels, 6 mistakes. So just label them, because that way you can see what you are identifying with. So if you identify with having made the mistake of having overeaten in the past, of being fat, if you identify with being fat, it's so difficult to lose weight. That's a self-concept that you will have to let go of so that you can embrace being the thin version of yourself, right? If you've had a business already and maybe it didn't work out for you, If you've then got the label of I'm a failed business owner, or I'm no good at having a business, then it's really difficult to have a successful business and to have the courage to start it and all of that. So really becoming aware, really looking at it as a label you've attached to yourself somehow. You can also look at it as a label you're sort of dragging along with you. And maybe it's even a label that you think everybody can see. I'm a failed business owner, or I'm fat, or whatever it is. Right? It's really become part of your identity. So instead of saying, I made a mistake, you might be saying, I am a mistake. Do you see the difference? So that's what we do in step 3. We notice that we're using sometimes the verb be. And be is one of the most powerful words in the English language. It's something we don't want to use lightheartedly, right? We really want to be careful about naming it ourselves. So I used to say, I'm lazy. It was really more of a fear of being lazy that had me sort of overwork and having the feeling that I had to prove, not so much to others, but mostly to myself, that I wasn't lazy. So I said I was lazy. So I let that define me. So if you think of it like that, if you're saying I am something and it's not serving you and it prevents you from doing or being or having what you want today, it has become an identification, and you can make peace with it. You really can make peace with that part of your past. You don't have to bring it with you. So that's what we do here in processing in step 3. So I'm going to show you a few examples that might speak to you, because I realize that this is a little bit abstract. But the idea is that you say, when I overate, that is the action or behavior I did, I was acting under the false assumption that I needed this food to feel good. So I can fill in the thought that motivated my action or my behavior, which was, I thought I needed that food to feel good, to feel better. And that was because I was feeling, maybe I was feeling unattractive, maybe I was feeling scared, maybe I was feeling any version of scared, afraid, anxious, stressed out, whatever it be. Right? So I made up a few more examples, but maybe you want to share one of yours, even if it feels a little bit vulnerable to be speaking about some of that. But let me just show you my examples. So an example could be, when I got married to John, I was acting under the false assumption that he would take care of me and that I would take care of him. The feeling was that I was in love, perhaps more with the idea of him than how he actually was. So I'll speak a little bit more about that after my examples. Another one would be, when I became a teacher, I was acting under the false assumption that it was my only option. I was feeling insecure and doubted my abilities. And that is not to say that there's anything wrong with being a teacher. I used to be one too. But if that's not what you really want to do, if you want to change that, well, let's just shine some light on it. And my third example is, when I bought my cousin's business, I was acting under the false assumption that it would be an easy way to make good money and that my cousin would help me. I was feeling desperate after my breakup with Nelly. So do you see, isolating your behavior, isolating the thought, and isolating the feeling will have you see everything so much more clearly. And we need that for the forgiveness part, because can you really be hard on yourself when you knew, or if you knew, that you were laboring under a false assumption? when you didn't have all the information, or if you were acting out of overwhelm. You see what I mean? So we are sort of moving all the parts around, everything that could be questionable. Well, we're questioning it, right? We're not taking anything at face value because that has been going on long enough for us. So that was this part of the workshop. The action, the behavior, the thought you were having, and the feeling. So let me just point out that your action in no way defines you. And as long as you have made a mistake in the past that you keep dragging up into the present, well, you keep repeating it. So, are you willing to forgive yourself? Or do you want to really keep paying the price for that one mistake in the past? So step 4 of my process is forgiveness. Think of a caring authority figure in your life. It has to be a person you like and respect, you esteem. Don't have to look up to them, but you really have to value their opinion. So imagine she's writing you a letter, explaining to you why you did what you did. What would she write? And let me just take an example, a random example. I made this up, but I imagine Georgina, who'd made a mistake in the past. She rented a house that proved too expensive for her, but she signed a lease that engaged her responsibility for, let's say, a year. So she can't get out of it before the end of the year, but she hasn't got enough money to pay for the rent. So that's just a situation I imagined. So Adriana tells her, I know you've been blaming yourself for things going wrong in your life, but let me simply explain how I see it. When you signed the lease of your house, the market was different. If you remember, you felt pressure to get a house in a safe neighborhood so that your son would go to a good school. You were afraid that unless you acted quickly, opportunities would slip through your fingers, and maybe you were right. So you acted out of good intentions, feeling urgency and pressure. After all, you were so concerned with your son after that divorce of yours. It was the first time you had to make such a decision. So please show yourself some compassion. I believe most women in your situation would have done something similar. Okay, so you didn't check up on the details of the contract, consulting with a lawyer, probably because you'd never rented such a place before and didn't know how to decipher the small writing. Wouldn't you say it was time to forgive yourself? We all make mistakes. This is one of yours. But now you have to move past it. Let me know if I can assist you in any way. I love you, Adriana. So over to you. Let's activate this forgiveness. Can you find it in yourself to write such a letter from a person you know, a person you respect, a person you esteem? And can you find it in yourself to call whatever error you made just an error of judgment, mismanagement, a mistake that doesn't define you in any way? Can you think of a way that that would be possible for you to do so? Because if you look at my example, it sort of shows that a person from the outside can see how much distress was happening for you when you made that mistake. So much stress or anguish or disappointment was happening when you took on the label of something. Right? I remember with a boyfriend of mine, he was very, very critical. Actually, he was a narcissistic, anyway. So he always told me that I couldn't communicate. I was no good at communicating. My communication was rubbish. So I just took that on because I was at a low point in my life. I was feeling isolated. I was away from my friends. I was in a foreign country, so I just thought, oh, right, that's my problem. I can't communicate. And I just took that into my present for the longest of times. And I think, first of all, you can learn how to communicate. It's not an either or. And I think, well, actually, I wasn't that bad at communicating. And I think that I've become even better. So I think that that is a label I've really let go of, if you see what I mean. So I think I'll just move on, and maybe I can have some of your comments towards the end, because we're really like throwing such a big net around all possible errors, mistakes, and labels from the past that it might be a little bit overwhelming. And you're sitting there thinking, crikey, I need some more time to process all of this. And of course you do. This is just a beginning. So if you can, write yourself such a letter. Try to look at it from the outside. And this is something that will help you look at it from the outside. It is that we identify with the mistakes, with the labels, and we make them permanent, pervasive, and personal, the 3 Ps. So your mistakes needn't be permanent, and they needn't be pervasive, and they needn't be personal. So what we mean by that is permanent. We mean that it will always be the case. We will always make the same mistakes, and the mistake that has identified us in the past, that we're dragging with us into the present, will always be there. That is not true. Also, pervasive is that it is everywhere, right? That we will make this be true everywhere. That is not true either. And that it is personal, that there's something in you, that there's an inbuilt fault in your makeup. There's something wrong in your being. That is personal, right? That is not true. We really have to separate the action, the behavior, the mistake from your identity. So if we look at my example from above, the letter to Georgina from Adriana is that the non-permanence is, I made the mistake once in my life at a time of distress. Right? She rented a house beyond her means, but she was feeling urgency and she was feeling care for her son. It was in an isolated situation that needn't be reproduced. She can go ahead and trust herself to rent another place, another time, knowing what she knows now. It's not pervasive because in many areas of my life, I've never made a big mistake. And I might never make one again. And if I do, I will know what to do about it. It's not personal, because I'm not the only one to ever have signed a dodgy lease, not understood what it was really about, especially when emotionally challenged. So over to you, write down for you, why is it that your mistakes are not permanent? Why is it that they were just one moment in your life? Even with, for instance, in my life, the overeating I did. It happened in a time of, or at a time of my life where I was feeling intense emotional distress, and food helped me protect myself from my emotions. And obviously, that is not the way to deal with your emotions, but it's so much better than suffering in other ways and perhaps going into depression, thinking of suicide. I mean, so much better to buffer with food, right? And it was something that I worked myself out of, right? I no longer overeat. It was at a time in my life, it was in this period, right? So there's nothing permanent about it. I don't have to keep overeating. It's not pervasive because I don't always self-protect, right? Sometimes I'm able, I would say even more and more, to just feel my feelings, right? So my whole behavior around feelings has completely changed. It's not pervasive and it's not personal. Lots of other people overeat, right? It's not about me, and it's not because there's something intrinsically wrong with me. So let's step into the letting go. And this is an exercise that you can only do if you control your environment, because it involves fire. So not a big fire, a tiny fire, right? But you could burn yourself, like you could stain your furniture. So what I advise you to do is to do this over a very large sink or a large bowl of water, because I would like for you to write down some of the labels or your mistakes or whatever, how you want to phrase them, on little pieces of paper. And you can go back to page 2 of this workbook and cut out the labels if that is fun for you. Or you can just take a piece of paper and divide it into 6 or 4 or however many parts you want, and write down on these bits of paper whatever it is you want to let go of. So when you're ready, in a controlled environment, you set fire to the piece of paper and you say, I let go of, and then you mention what it is you're letting go of. And you can watch the smoke drift off and imagine that this carries away any attachment to it, any guilt, blame, or reproach, right? It's all drifting off. And then once you've done that with all your 6 or 4 or however many labels, just take a moment. Don't go into another activity, just be with it. Just sit down, and I would recommend that you sit down for 10 minutes with nothing to do, and you just be with it. Really be with what has just happened. Don't try to analyze it. There's nothing you have to think. Just let ideas and thoughts pop into your awareness. They can pop in, they can pop out. You don't need to attach to them. You don't need to explain anything. Just let it be, right? Just let it be, because you've started the healing process here. So stepping into the healing. Let's journal this out. So if I'm no longer held back by, and here you fill in the label, the mistake, or whatever you identified with from the past. If I'm no longer held back by overeating, I'm able to trust myself with food. I'm able to eat healthily. I'm able to have a good relationship with food. That's just an example. So I would love if you could share with me what came up for you in all this. And you'll know if you've really healed, if you let go, if you've not really healed, but if you started healing, if you no longer feel that you have to explain the why, you no longer have to keep reminding yourself, oh, I overeat because my mum told me that I was ugly when I was little, right? You no longer have to explain or justify. So in my example from earlier, it would be, oh, I don't communicate well because my former boyfriend used to tell me that I was bad at communication. So that's why I don't communicate well. Do you see what I mean? If I can just be with it, and I don't need to explain bad communication, it's still sort of there, but yeah, I'm cool with it. I don't have to explain it away. Do you see what I mean? So I would love to hear a few of your examples of labels that you have got from your past. And please only share what you feel is useful or possible for you to share, right? I don't want you to share anything that feels hugely uncomfortable. But if you want to be vulnerable, well, then you can. So mistakes about anything you did, believing what somebody said of you was true. So in my case, my boyfriend told me I was bad at communicating, that I couldn't communicate. And it's really ridiculous when I think back, because I'd just come to France, right? I'd been in France for 9 months and I couldn't speak French properly. And so, of course, it was difficult for me to communicate, if you see what I mean. So when you look back, it's really ridiculous, right? But at the time, I couldn't see it. So at the time, had I got stuck in the why, had I been overthinking the, oh, why is it that I'm bad at communicating? I would never found the answer, because the answer is that he was judging me on my French and I hadn't had the time to learn French, right? So had I been able just to let go of it, that would have been wonderful. But I kept hanging on to it for a few more years. I really dragged it along with me. I used to drag along with me too that I was fat, even when I wasn't anymore. But it would just come back. It was like, I can't control myself with food. I can't trust myself with food. That was one of the things I dragged along with me. But maybe my chat isn't working because I can't see you filling in anything. But I'd love to know. So maybe I've just gone along and overwhelmed you with all this info, but it's really just an introduction. And can I just say that you can take any part of this exercise separately, or this 8-step process. You can take step 1, 5, and 6 and have that be what you need from this, right? There is no right and there is no wrong, as long as you don't blame yourself. Right, so, right. You got used to living a life that was not what you wanted. Yeah, don't we all at some point? We get used to it. And the good news is that once you realize, oh, I just got used to accepting a lot of the things I don't really want to accept, well, then you can just move on. And I'm an introvert. Yeah, is that something that serves you? Is it? I've got an opinion about introverts and extroverts, because I don't really see how useful it is to identify either as an introvert or an extrovert. I like to think that I'm sometimes introvert and I'm sometimes extrovert. It depends. If I feel safe with people, then I can be really chatty and fun to be with. And if I feel uncomfortable with people, well, then it's a lot harder. But I think it's also that I've heard a definition once, which was that introverts, they get their energy from being on their own, and extroverts get their energy from being with other people. I think it's a little bit black and white. And I think we're often in between. I think we're always in between, in fact. So I think I sometimes get a lot of energy by being on my own, but then if I'm with the right kind of people that energize me, then I get a lot of energy from them. And I think we can learn to be more of the introvert, more of the extrovert, if we so desire. So maybe you could just let go of that, Cynthia, if you want to. So yeah, Elizabeth, like you weren't worthy. We've all got that worthiness issue, really. We all have, don't we? But then we are so worthy. And it's fun because that is my last slide for you. So yeah, I know what you mean. So Jill, I have a part of me that is stuck on going back and fixing what I can't fix. Oh, wow, what an insight. Yeah, we want to go back and fix our past, but I think we can, in a way, fix it. I mean, of course, we can't change facts from the past, but we can fix it in the sense that we rewrite the story. And that is what we've been doing. So instead of telling ourselves, I was wrong to overeat, then we can tell ourselves, I've got so much compassion for the person who is suffering and who found the coping mechanism of overeating, and that saved her life. Right? For my example with the person who signed a lease, it could be rewriting the story is, well, she can't fix that moment of signing the lease, but she can, like in the letter, say, I have got so much compassion for the person who wanted so much goodness for her son, who was suffering from the shock of a divorce, and who still managed to house both her and her son in a good neighborhood. Well done. So I don't know if that is what you mean by fixing it, but I think we can rewrite the story we've been telling ourselves around it. What do you think? Yeah, so thank you. Thank you for mentioning all of that. It's so useful with real life examples. So useful. So right now, oh dear. Oh dear. So I just wanted to share my screen and I made a mistake, which I'm used to making, you know, so it's not a big deal. So let me just do it like this. And I'll just have to go ahead and présenter, as I've got my Canva in French. So the good news is that you can have your very own private life coach who can help you with all of this. And this is really how life coaching works. I wanted to explain this to you so that you've got a very clear idea of what it is, because it really is a simple idea. And the first step really to life coaching is to have an idea that, fill in the dream, that losing weight, starting your own business, finding love would dramatically improve the quality of your life. So I've got the idea that living in a chateau would dramatically improve the quality of my life. Then your very own life coach will help you reveal the unconscious stumbling blocks that prevent you from filling this space with that dream of yours, finding love, getting married, having a baby, whatever it is for you, moving to another country, making triple the money you're making now, whatever it is. So the life coach will help you identify what your unconscious stumbling blocks are. And it's always difficult to see for ourselves. It's so much easier for somebody on the outside. Then your life coach helps you create belief that you can indeed triple the money you make, move to a different country, buy your dream house, become an interior designer, whatever it is that you feel is what would improve the quality of your life. And with this belief, you will believe that it's possible for you, not just possible for other people, but possible for you as you are right now, without losing the 20 pounds, without making a fortune, without being perfect, right? For you right now. So once you believe that you can start your own business, live in a chateau, find love, you create your roadmap to it. So the steps that will take you to where it is you want to be. Then your life coach helps you implement the roadmap and get you back on track when you stray or you lose faith, which you will. When we've got those big goals, when we are dreaming big, when we allow ourselves to identify what it is we really want, when we start feeling into that and we start moving towards it, there will be ups and there will be downs, right? If there weren't, if it was easy, you would already be there. So you are going to change your self-concept as you move along, and you are going to sometimes doubt, and you are going to sometimes get it wrong. And your life coach is there to help you back on track. So this is when the magic happens. You start your own business, you move into your chateau, you find love, whatever it is, and you start enjoying it immensely, feeling extremely empowered and proud. And empowered just means that you see how capable you are. You see what you're really capable of, like, because you are living it. And that is indeed a big opportunity to feel proud. And you're now equipped to create any other thing or experience you want in your life, because you've been through the process. You know how it works. But I've still got my life coach. I've still got my business coach. You know, I don't see why I would not have them, because it's so much easier. It saves so much time for me. If I had to work all this out on my own, it would take so much more time. So it's simple, it's doable, and your first step is to book a consultation, and I will share the link to that in the chat. And I've opened up most of my Saturday for you, because I realized that I didn't have that many spots open for you. So I opened up Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, for you. And then obviously sometimes next week, there's even, I think, 1 or 2 tomorrow. So please go ahead and avail yourself of it, because you are, Elizabeth, so worth it. We are also worth it, right? We are also worthy of living that dream life of ours, right? We don't have to get used to living a life of what isn't what we really wanted, right? So let me go ahead and share the link that you need if you want to book a consultation. And so in the consultation, I will show you what is possible. Like, maybe you're not even aware of what you could be creating in your life. We will generate belief for you that it is possible. And once you've got the belief, then you want to take action on that belief. So during the session, I'm not going to coach you on your dream. I'm going to show you what is possible. Sorry. I'm going to show you what is possible, and perhaps we can define a few action steps. And if I think I can be of use to you, I will suggest it. But if you don't want to take me up on it, it's all good. So if you book a consultation, it's not telling me I want to coach with you. It's just telling me I'm interested. Could you explain that to me further? Can you show me what that would look like to me in my life? Right? And I might see that I can't help you. I might think that perhaps a different kind of self-help, or a different kind of self-development, or a different kind of therapy would be more useful for you, in which case I will suggest it. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. You're so kind. So it's really just a gift from me to you, that you can feel completely at ease with taking me up on. It's an opportunity for me to learn, and it's an opportunity for me to meet you. So the more I connect with people who come to my workshops, well, the better I can cater to their needs, if you see what I mean. So if I don't know what you're struggling with, then I can always put on a workshop. I can always suggest something, but what would be most useful to you would be that I knew exactly what it is you're struggling with, right? So that I can help more of you. So obviously, not all of you can go on to be my private clients, but maybe I can help you via these workshops, in our Facebook group, via the speaking I sometimes do on summits. And on that score, there's one coming up at the end of March on raising remarkable children. So I'm really looking forward to that. But let me know. So if you want to, go ahead, grab that link and move on and book a consultation right now, because they sometimes get snapped up quite quickly. And as we might not be in the same time zone, like if you're in the States, there will perhaps only be morning and early afternoon times for you. Whereas if you live in Australia, well, there will only be evening times for you. And if you live in Europe, then there'll be times all day for you. But some of them, the ones get snapped up really quickly. So if you want the widest range of choice, please go ahead and head straight there. So the link is in the chat. Well, you're welcome, Jill. Okay, reflection provoking. Now that's a new word. I love it. Yeah, and that is really my idea with this workshop. So it's just to present you with self-development stuff in a way that speaks to you. So maybe it speaks to you, maybe it doesn't, and that is all good, right? Maybe some of it spoke to you, and if I were you, I would just latch on to what spoke to me and then go from there, right? And feel free to write to me too, to say, I didn't understand this, I didn't really get that part. I mean, I'm here to help, right? And I always love connecting with you. So as I used to tell my students before, I have got oceans of patience. I've never run out of patience. So try me. You're so welcome, Wanda. Oh, thank you. I am planning on getting well. And like I'm 90% back to being completely well. But I've really got, I traveled to Denmark and I stayed there, and I traveled by plane, and I hadn't taken a plane since before COVID. And I think there were just too many germs on that plane I got. So I just got so many infections from that. So thank you, Wanda. So nice of you. But I'm really feeling okay, and I'm looking almost okay. It's just a little bit of the voice gone here. But anyway, I'm still here. I think I'll stop the recording. And if you're still here, well, feel free to ask me a few questions if you want to. You're welcome, Cynthia. Oh, I love it when people tell me that my handout are beautiful. I think maybe I'll start putting in a few less photos, because if you print them out, then that must cost you so much ink, right? So I think I'll just from now on put a very nice cover on it, and then perhaps limit myself in the pictures I put in the photos. So anyway, thank you for following along. If you're on the replay, I'm stopping the replay right now. And those of you who are here, we can still hang out together, knowing that we are no longer being recorded. So bye for now. Hope to connect with you very soon in the future.